I don't know how many of you know about the quartz crisis. But in the late 1960s, around 1969, the Seiko Watch Corporation in Japan released a wristwatch called the Quartz Astron. It was gold with a brown leather strap. It was the first proper quartz wristwatch, and it was considered a luxury item of its time. It was considered one of the most accurate movements in the world, and something which so alarmed the Swiss that they never really caught up to it, despite the best efforts, and despite creating their own quartz movements. Japanese brands like Citizen, Seiko, Casio just kind of proceeded to eat their lunch for a long time, and then the process of making a quartz watch got so much more inexpensive to the point where now the cheapest watches you can find are quartz watches. My goodness, you weren't kidding about your tabs. Yes, there is a lot. I will get through all of them eventually. One of my moderators, Action Bastard, challenged me one time. It's like, you should do like a 24-hour stream where the goal is just to get through each and every one of your tabs, or as many of them as you can, to the point where you close out a window. I have still put the challenge down on the table for everyone. 100 subs, I'll do it. 100 subs and I will do it.
When people hear the words quartz crisis, they picture Switzerland.
This from Horology Archive, how Japan killed American watchmaking in 10 years, the quartz crisis. And it was a real crisis for Switzerland, and even for the Americans.
They imagine alpine villages emptying, centuries of tradition collapsing under the weight of a battery-powered intruder from the east. That picture is wrong. Switzerland survived. The watch industry that actually died was the American. By Christmas Day 1969, when the first quartz wristwatch goes on sale in a Tokyo department store, the largest American watch company has already declared bankruptcy. Second largest has been dead for over a decade. The third has just packed up and moved to Switzerland. Japan does not boom American watchmaking. It annihilates it. And the killing takes less than 10 years. For 500 years, a watch is a tiny mechanical. Coiled mainspring stores energy. A gear train transmits it. A balance wheel swinging back and forth against the tension of a hairspring parcels that energy out in measured beats. Every tick is the result of physical objects touching, wearing, drift. Temperature changes the length of the hairspring. Gravity pulls differently depending
Those things stretch out. There's no getting them to coil back.
Even the best mechanical watches gain or lose seconds every day. Accuracy is expensive. It requires jeweled bearings, 17 at minimum for a railroad-grade pocket watch, to reduce friction at critical pivots.
Yeah, 17, that's rookie numbers. I mean, I've got watches in my own collection that have got jewel counts in the 20s, 30s, maybe even the 40s for some of them.
Points. It requires hand-adjusted hairsprings. It requires skilled labor, thousands of workers.
It is a fine art form.
Covering tens of acres. The entire industrial logic of watchmaking, from the first mass-produced movements on the Charles River in Massachusetts to the last railroad chronometer calibrated in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, rests on a single assumption: that precision requires mechanical complexity, that gears and springs are the only way to measure time. That assumption holds for 5 centuries. It does not hold, but before the crystal arrives, the American watch industry has to exist. And it begins on the banks of the Charles River in Waltham, Mass. In 1850. Aaron Lufkin Dennison is a watchmaker who believes the techniques used.
I don't think anybody remembers the Waltham Watch Company.
His company, the Boston Watch Company, builds a factory in Waltham, Mass. Where the natural drop of the Charles River provides hydropower.
What a view.
The company will be renamed the American Watch Company and then the Waltham Watch Company, but the achievement remains. Waltham is the first company in the world to mass-produce complete watches under one roof using...
I could swear one of my grandfathers had a Waltham pocket watch, I think. I don't know. Doesn't work anymore. The crystal protecting the dial and everything just disappeared. Needs servicing, desperately so. It doesn't work anymore. But I could swear it was Waltham. I don't know.
Standardized, machine-made, interchangeable parts. The Swiss are so alarmed by the quality of Waltham's output at the 1876 Philadelphia Centennial Exhibition that they send a representative, Jacques David, to study American method. David returns home and warns his peers that Swiss watchmaking will be destroyed unless they adopt American-style mechanization. They do. In 1864, the National Watch Company is founded in Elgin, Illinois. It is renamed the Elgin National Watch Company a decade later. By the mid-1920s, Elgin's factory complex covers 21 acres and employs over
massive.
4,500, more than half of them women. It is the largest site dedicated to watchmaking.
Delicate hands for the delicate job.
Elgin produces roughly 60 million watches over its century-long run, peaking at over 1 million watches per year. The Hamilton Watch Company, founded in 1892 in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, builds legendary railroad pocket watches, models like the 992.
Now there's a brand that is still in existence. Hamilton. Though not a distinctly American brand anymore. It's actually part of the Swatch Group. But they do still produce some fantastic watches. I think the biggest and most recent success story has been the Hamilton Murph, which started out as a one-off prototype that Matthew McConaughey wore in Interstellar, and people kept clamoring for that watch, and Hamilton was just like, well, we don't make it. That was just a prototype we made for the film, and people just responded, no, we really want that watch. And so they decided to mass produce it. I think it started out first as a 42 millimeter watch, and then was made into a smaller version at about 38, 39 millimeters. Beautiful field style watch. Very well made. Not terribly expensive, but is one of those kind of Gada type timepieces. Go anywhere, do anything, one and done sort of watch that you can swap out straps and bracelets on it, and it will look good in almost all occasions. You can dress it up, you can dress it down. It's just your go-to. Very simple design of black dial and Arabic numerals like this with luminous paint on each of them, so glows in the dark along with the hands. I say it's something like I think it might have the 80-hour power reserve. So it is, I believe it is one of those watches that you can put down on a Friday and then pick it up on a Monday morning, and it will still be ticking away. Hamilton's reproducing old military field watches. I don't think they ever stopped, really. They're always quite famous for the military field watches. The khaki series, especially, which they've got those in manual winding versions. They've got them in automatics. And they still have a quartz version, which I think got rather famous when it was being sold in one of the catalogs. I think it was the LL Bean catalog, where they sold a lot of Hamilton khaki quartz watches for a long time. I think we did a reaction video about that a long time ago. It may still be somewhere in the archives. Lord Rexworth VT on YouTube, and I believe it's also on the Rumble page. Might possibly be part of my epic long prattling rant, but I spent 3 hours talking about watches. So yeah, if you want to have yourself a bit of watch autism, there you go, have at it.
And the 950B. After a fatal train collision in Kipton, Ohio in 1891, caused by an engineer's watch stopping for 4 minutes, a Cleveland jeweler named Webb C. Ball is appointed chief time inspector and creates a set of standards: minimum 17 jewels tested in 5 positions, accuracy within 30 seconds. These standards shape precision watchmaking worldwide. By the turn
It's
of the
still
20th
kind of the
century,
standard today.
American watchmaking is an industrial power.
But 30 seconds a week lost, that's still a lot. Even by today's standards, and even by modern mechanical watch standards, they've managed to shave off a few seconds. So I think now they're more accurate to within 15 to 20 seconds per week now, or even per month. They still can't beat a quartz watch, because most quartz watches are accurate to within about something like 3, 5, maybe 10 seconds per year. Now, watch ought to sync up.
Powerhouse spread across 8 states: Waltham in Massachusetts, Elgin in Illinois, Hamilton in Pennsylvania, Waterbury in Connecticut, South Bend in Indiana, Gruen, Ball, and others in Ohio and New York. Tens of thousands of workers. Millions of watch. This is the world Kintaro Hattori is born into on November the 21st, 1860, in Kyobashi, Tokyo. Hattori is a merchant's son. At 11, he apprentices
And the
himself
founder
to
of
a
Seiko.
haberdashery. At 13, he visits a clock shop and decides that he reasons that now that trains are running in Tokyo, people will need to know the time. In 1881, at 21 years old, he
Simple
opens
enough.
Kei Hattori and Company, a watch and clock shop in central Tokyo. In 1892, he partners with engineer Tsuruhiko Yoshikawa to found the Seikosha factory. Seikosha means house of exquisite work. In 1913, the factory
And the name still holds true even today. Some of the best watches I have are Seikos, and in fact the finest one in my collection is a Grand Seiko quartz. Anytime there's a dressy occasion, I wear my Grand Seiko, and it's such a simple watch, but such subtle, fine details on it still turns heads.
produces the Laurel, Japan's first wrist. By the time Hattori dies on March the 1st, at 73, Seiko watchmaker.
They skipped over it in the story of Seiko and also the life story of Kintaro Hattori. Hattori-san did something incredible. There was this massive earthquake in Japan around the turn of the 20th century. And, I mean, it was just devastating. Everything was destroyed, including the Seikosha factory. I mean, they had pocket watches that they were working on. The whole place collapsed in on itself, burnt, and whatever was left just burnt to the ground because things were catching fire. And so you go to the Seiko Museum in Ginza, I believe, you can see this. They have on display this, I can only describe it as a giant blob of pocket watches that have melted and fused together from that earthquake and fire. These were all, each one of them were being made to order for the customer. Anyone else and in anywhere else in the world would have tried to rebuild and just press forward. And, people that expected to get their watch, well, sorry, everything burned to the ground and your watch got fused with everybody else's watch in this giant metal blob, so sucks, bro. But Hattori was different. He was really a person of excellence and speaks something really positive to his character and also the character of Seiko. He went back and looked at all of the orders that were left unfulfilled, and as soon as he got Seiko back up and running, he went back and made good on all of those orders, every single one of them. And I think even some people's watches that were, lost because of the earthquake is just like, all right, have another one on me. Truly a man of really good character. That's someone you want to do business with. He's just like, I don't care how long it takes to get back up and running. These people had orders with us, and by God, we are going to fulfill those orders. And these people will receive the product that they paid good money for.
3 decades later, the man who will end American watchmaking is 22 years old and standing in the rubble of a bombed factory. Tsuneya Nakamura is born on March 8, 19... He joins Daini Seikosha in Kamaido, Tokyo in 1944 at the tail end of World... In 1945, American bombs destroy the factory. The surviving staff and machines are evacuated
First an earthquake, then bombs.
plant in Suwa, a small city in the mountainous Nagano. Nakamura, barely out of his teens, is sent. He arrives in a town surrounded by mountains, in a factory that has to be rebuilt from almost nothing. It is in Suwa that Nakamura begins
It wasn't the
work
first
that will
time.
define his life. The factory's output is behind the times. Seiko's designs are considered too derivative of European watch. Nakamura asks his superiors for resources to develop something modern. In 1956, at 33 years old, he produces the Seiko Marvel, an entirely new mechanical watch that modernizes the company's line and
You can get something quite similar these days through a sister company of Seiko called Orient. It's called the Bambino, and it's actually been one of their best sellers. It's quite a lovely dress watch, automatic movement. They used to make a quartz version. I've got one, but they stopped making the quartz version. Now they're all... Orient tends to specialize more in mechanical watches. They leave most of the quartz ones to Seiko. Really good watch. A lot of people rave about it, and doesn't really cost a lot. It's like 200, 250 on the most expensive end. I mean, for a dress watch, for something for a bit more formal occasions, really not bad. Serves the purpose, and great value for money.
Achieves immediate. The Marvel wins domestic chronometry. It leads to the Gyro Marvel, Japan's first automatic watch, using a winding system Nakamura helps develop called the Magic. But the Marvel is a mechanical watch. It is still governed by gears and springs. It is still limited by the physics of oscillating metal. In 1958, Seiko builds a quartz clock for the Chubu Broadcasting Corporation in Nagoya. The clock is accurate. It is also the size of a filing cabinet. Nakamura looks at this filing cabinet and sees a wristwatch. The insight that will guide the rest of his career is forming a vibrating quartz crystal oscillating at thousands of cycles per second, can replace every mechanical component in a watch: the mainspring, the balance wheel, the escapement, the gear train. And once the crystal is small enough and cheap enough...
Look at that shot. Accuracy leaps to 0.02, plus or minus 0.2 seconds per day. That truly is a great leap forward, a quantum leap.
Balance wheel, the escapement, the gear train. And once the crystal is small enough and cheap enough, accuracy stops being a luxury. It becomes a commodity. The 500-year assumption,
almost a public resource,
requires mechanical complexity, collapse.
Wind-up pocket watches are an interest of mine, but a lot of the ones made now tend to be too showy for my taste. Like, they have that window, you can see the movement and so on. Yeah, the sort of skeleton-type watches, or semi-skeleton, yeah.
In 1959, Nakamura launches the 59A project at Suwa Seikosha. The name comes from the year. The mission is to develop a next-generation, high-accuracy, battery-operated time. The first goal is not a wristwatch. It is a portable quartz chronometer. The filing cabinet must shrink before it can fit on a wrist.
Yeah, a lot of people might not know it. This used to be what constituted a quartz clock. They were originally developed, I think, around World War II. And yeah, they took up entire rooms and filing cabinets, and they're just massive. So to go from all of this to something you wear on your wrist, that's incredible progress. Absolutely incredible.
Filing cabinet must shrink before it can fit. By 1963, the team produces the Crystal Chronometer QC951. It is a portable quartz clock, about 20 centimeters tall, battery-operated, capable of running for a year on 2 D-cell batteries. Its daily error is 0.2
those are big
seconds.
Batteries.
The 1958 clock stands over 2 meters tall. The QC951 stands 20 centimeters tall. It is not yet a wristwatch, but the direction is unmistakable.
They're getting there.
The 1964 Tokyo Olympics become the proving ground. Seiko is selected as official timekeeper. The company produces 36 models and 1,278 individual timing devices for the game.
They're still proud of that even to this day.
QC951 is deployed. It is the first time in Olympic history that quartz timing is used across all major events. Seiko develops the world's first crystal oscillator digital stop clock, and it measures Abebe Bikila's marathon world record of 2 hours, 12 minutes, 11 points. The company also develops the first printing timer, which directly prints results as time. Seiko arrives at the Olympics an unknown Japanese manufacturer. It leaves as a global brand. While Seiko is shrinking crystals, American watchmakers are fighting a different war. Hamilton unveils the world's first electric watch in 1957, the Electric 500. It is battery-powered, but the timekeeping mechanism is still mechanical. A balance wheel regulated by
an almost rudimentary form of spring drive movement, long before Seiko developed it.
It is notoriously... In 1960, Belova releases the Accutron, the world's first electronic wristwatch. Its tuning fork movement, designed primarily by Swiss engineer Max Hetzel at Belova's facilities, is a genuine leap forward. Far more...
The way it just sweeps like that, very similar to what you'll find with a spring drive movement on Grand Seikos.
More accurate than any mechanical watch of its era. Rolex is so threatened by the Accutron that the company engages in corporate espionage to monitor Belova's progress.
Damn.
For a brief moment, American watchmaking looks like it might lead, but the tuning fork is an increment. It replaces the balance wheel with a vibrating fork, but the principle is the same. A physical object oscillating at a fixed frequency. Seiko is pursuing something fundamentally different. In 1966, Seiko...
Though they'll get to that eventually. I believe roughly around this time in the 60s or 70s, they started, or maybe it was the 80s, they started doing R&D on what would eventually become the spring drive, a hybrid of quartz and mechanical, and finally got it ready for prime time sometime in the late 90s or the 2000s. Action Bastard, welcome in. Happy 4th of July to you as well. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a good day. Everyone, please, especially if you are celebrating in America, make sure you American responsibly.
Seiko develops a pocket watch-sized quartz prototype. In 1967, quartz wristwatch prototypes are entered in Switzerland's Neuchâtel Observatory All 10 movements submitted by Seiko to the 1964 competition are regulated personally by Nakamura. The crystal is almost small enough to wear. The fundamental constraint is now visible. The tuning fork vibrates at 360 cycles per second. The quartz crystal in Seiko's prototypes vibrates at 8,192 cycles
Not
per
even in
second.
the same league.
Higher frequency means finer division of time, which means greater accuracy.
Yeah.
The tuning fork cannot compete with the crystal on physics. It is not a question of engineering talent. It is a question of which oscillator wins, and the crystal wins by a factor of more than 20. Meanwhile, the American
That's not
watch
even
industry
close.
is already DIYing, and the quartz revolution has not. Waltham, the company that invented industrial watchmaking in 1854, declares bankruptcy in 1949. The factory briefly reopens a few times to finish existing inventory, but every plan to restart the business fails. By 1957,
That's
the
awful.
company exits the consumer watch business entirely and reorganizes into the Waltham Precision Instruments Company. Gruen sells off all of its assets in 1964, Elgin relocates most manufacturing to a new plant in Blaney, South Carolina. A town so eager for the factory that it renames itself It does not matter. In 1968, the Elgin National Watch Company, once the world's largest watch, declares bankruptcy and discontinues all US manufacturing. The rights to the name are sold. Hamilton acquires the Swiss firm Buren and moves its operations to Switzerland in 19...
My apologies for the popping noises that you might hear on my microphone chat. Apparently, one of my neighbors, I live in a city, has decided to set off fireworks, which is quite illegal, but apparently that doesn't stop them. Had an awesome day? That's good, that's good. Elucidator, welcome to you. Happy Freedom and Steak Day, hell yeah. Had lots of barbecue all day, now I'm home, gonna watch 80s action movies. Let's go.
1969. Benrus is sold by the early 1970s. The patient list tells the story. In 1955, the major American watch companies by volume are Elgin, Bulova, Benrus, Longines Wittnauer, Hamilton, Gruen, Waltham, and Timex. By 1970, the list is Bulova, Longines Wittnauer, and Timex. By 1980, only Timex. Bulova is purchased by Japan's Citizen Watch Company.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. The Citizen Group is Citizen, Bulova, Campanola, Arnold & Son, Alpina, and if you can believe it, Frederic Constant. Something quite illegal here that migrants in cities like to do is lay in wait at bus stops like the one near the 7-Eleven near Velgeby Church with fireworks, light them as you see a bus, and throw them at the bus at night. And why? Just to have a laugh? So stupid.
Bulova is purchased by Japan's Citizen Watch Company. American watchmaking does not decline. It vanishes. The causes stack up across decades.
It got absorbed
World
by
War
the
II
Swiss,
diverts
basically.
American watch factories to bomb timers, fuse production, and military. When consumer production resumes around 1947, American companies are roughly a decade behind the Swiss in developing automatic movement. In the early 1950s, American manufacturers lobby Washington for higher tariffs on Swiss. The government imposes only modest ones. Swiss movements produced with cheaper labor and a devalued franc flood the American factories age.
It's hard to believe, but even a lot of Swiss watches were a lot cheaper back then compared to what they are now. People don't. It seems hard to believe now, but 50, 60 years ago, Rolexes were tool watches in the most literal sense. Very well made, to be sure, but they weren't regarded as, in large part, as luxury timepieces. They were mostly tool watches that served a function. Nowadays, they're just sort of a fashion accessory.
The consolidation that might have saved the industry never happens. Switzerland has the state-backed ASUAG, formed in 1931 to protect its watch industry during the Great Depression. America has nothing equivalent. No government rescue, no mega merger, no coordinator. Into this wreckage, on December the 25th, the Seiko Quartz Astron 35 SQ goes on sale in Tokyo. Shoji Hattori, president of K. Hattori and Company,
just in time for Christmas.
Call. In late 1968, seeing the Quartz development progress, he shuts down the parallel tuning fork watch project and tells Nakamura's team they have 1 year to deliver a commercial product. The name Astron is chosen to evoke the space age. Nakamura's team manages to produce 20 watches by early December, with production continuing through the launch. The movement, caliber 35 SQ, is 30mm in diameter and 5.3mm thick. The quartz crystal oscillates at 8,192 cycles per second. A hybrid integrated circuit divides the signal. A 6-pole stepper motor, its coil wound from 20 micrometer copper wire turned 20,000 times, rotates 60 degrees per electrical pulse, 1 pulse per second. The motor turns the hands. No mainspring, no balance wheel, no escapement, no gear train. A silver battery powers it for more than accuracy, plus or minus 5 seconds per month, plus or minus 1 minute. The best mechanical chronometers in the world cannot touch. The watch is housed in an 18-karat yellow gold case.
It blew everyone out of the water. Rex, are or were you a Swatch guy? Swatch the brand? No. And I don't really like what they're doing with these collaborations in recent years with Omega and with Audemars Piguet. I find that to be a bit tacky. The Swatch group in general, there's some good ones out there. I'm quite fond of the Longines Spirit Zulu Time. I think that's an absolutely beautiful GMT complication watch. If I didn't already have some really nice diving watches, I might get a Certina. I think Omegas have become far too overpriced, but still more attainable, surprisingly, than a Rolex. But again, far too expensive when you've got Tudors that are more reasonably priced, and I think look a lot nicer. Always thought you were a Casio man. I do have Casios. I do have at least one Casio, a Casio Royale, that was actually modified by SKX mods with fully stainless steel case, bracelet, sapphire crystal, 100 meters of water resistance, and is a digital world timer. I actually took that one with me, and that was all I wore when I was in the UK last, mainly because it would be a bit too much of a risk to my security and personal safety to be wearing anything fancier than that. So, yeah. No, I really like Casios. I think the Casio, the G-Shock, is a fantastic watch. Beautiful design. And yeah, there's digital Casio watches that I think still look incredibly cool. Have kind of that retro aesthetic to them that just, yeah, they're awesome. But no, more than a Casio, man. I've got, like I said, a Grand Seiko that's the best one, and like finest watch in my collection, crown jewel. I've got two Christopher Wards. One of them is GMT Complication. It's kind of a British take on a Rolex Explorer 2. And the other one is modeled after the Smith's W10, and actually has become standard issue for members of the British Army. And then I've got a couple of Seikos. I've got a Seiko Diver's watch, I think, it's like a modern replica of a 62 or 65 mass. Love that watch. It's, um, rather heavy on the wrist, but it still just looks fantastic. Gosh, what else do I have? I've got a lot. I may have to do a handcam stream sometime, just showing off the watches in my collection. Rex loves cars and is a horologist, very much a well-learned man, and still a bit of a man of style, timeless style, I would say. I don't want to sound too boastful when I say that sort of thing, but you know, as we saw with the reaction to Japanese suits versus Savile Row, um, I should like to think that I've built up at least a little bit of good taste and culture over my years of life. Tried to, anyway.
36 millimeters in diameter, 11 millimeters thick. The price is 450,000 yen, roughly equivalent to a mid-sized Toyota. It is not cheap.
You know, the first quartz watches, as I said, they were luxury items. So you could have a car, or you could have a Seiko Quartz Astron. Most people could not have both. And if you could have both, you were doing quite well for yourself in life back in 1969.
It is not mass market. About 100 watches are sold by the end of 1969.
No, they did not sell very well in the beginning.
January 5th, 1970, introduces the Astron to America under the headline "Accuracy Stressed for Crisp Japanese Watch." Seiko's marketing slogan is
not exactly a glowing headline, is it?
7 words long. Someday, all watches will be made. They are right.
And that's quite
the decision
prophetic.
that turns someday into now is not a product but a policy. Seiko publishes its quartz watch patents openly, deliberately accelerating global adoption of the technology. The tuning fork.
That takes balls. There's plenty of other companies that would have just said, "Nah, we're not doing that. We're keeping that a secret. That's ours."
Crystal oscillator, the integrated circuit architecture, the open stepper motor. Seiko makes the blueprints available to any manufacturer in the world. This is the moment the American watch industry's death becomes irreversible. Not because one Japanese company is selling luxury quartz watches in gold cases. Because the technology to build a quartz watch is now. Within a few years, quartz movements can be mass-produced for a fraction of the cost of a mechanical movement.
That one move alone, just taking proprietary inventions like that and just making it open source, I think we can point to that one move alone. Seiko and Japan killed American watchmaking and dealt a critical blow. Not necessarily a fatal blow, but a critical blow to the Swiss, to which they have never recovered. Never recovered. Their idea of fighting it off was to just in so many ways double down on everything they were already doing, which was kind of a losing strategy, before finally breaking down and developing their own quartz movements, which has sustained them up to now. But even then, there's almost no independent watchmaking in Switzerland anymore. So many of the companies that still exist today are part of greater conglomerates, like the Swatch Group. I think one of the last truly independent Swiss watchmakers out there that is still family owned, I mean, aside from Rolex, technically through the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation, but the one truly like family owned Swiss watchmaker out there is one that most people have never even heard of, and it's called Titoni. They're rather famous. One of their flagship models, the diver's watch is called the Sea Scoper, and I think it's their workhorse one is just it's a saturation diver. It's a deep sea diver, but the one that really sort of put them on the map in terms of a series or a name is the Cosmo King, which was always their response to the Rolex presidential day date and the Tudor Prince Oyster date day. So day date complication available in silver and gold, silver and or gold. A lot of them have these sort of fluted bezels, very similar to what you would find with a Rolex, just a little bit more, I guess, unrefined. But whereas a Rolex presidential day date can run about somewhere between $50,000 and $75,000, Titoni will sell you a Cosmo King or a Cosmo Queen for the ladies for about $1,000, or roughly $1,200 on the high end. It's actually a rather lovely design. And I don't know, given the choice and the price, I think I'd rather have the Cosmo King. Rex, do you have a beautiful pocket watch in your collection? Even though I sadly haven't started my watch collecting yet, I love the look and feel of a good pocket watch. An old-timer co-worker helped me appreciate them. Always had one in his pocket. My father has a few pocket watches. I've never really been into pocket watches myself. I've just always preferred to have something on the wrist. Maybe it's just something of my men of my generation just tend to prefer that sort of thing. I am an admirer of old pocket watches, of course. Don't know if I'd ever start a collection over them, but certainly there's beautiful designs throughout the years, and there is one that belonged to my late grandfather that my dad keeps in a safe place. No longer works. It hasn't worked in years. Might possibly just be one of those things we keep as a keepsake of my grandfather's. Don't know if it. We've talked about looking into getting it serviced. I think my dad looked at it one time, and we have yet to find anyone who can properly service it without just ripping out the entire movement and putting something brand new. And then at that point, it kind of, you have the whole ship of Theseus conundrum. Is like, is it really the same watch after that? For 1K, that watch better be magic or magically attuned. Well, still made by hand by a family-owned watchmaker in Switzerland. So it is fine Swiss watchmaking, hailing back from old, put it that way. And still damn sight cheaper than anything you find from Rolex. That's for true. Funny enough, I've had a pocket watch before. Pain to keep track of if you don't have a chain for it. Yes. Quite easy to lose your pocket watch if you don't have it attached to a chain and have that chain clipped to your person.
Japanese firms Seiko, Citizen, and Casio scale production rapidly. American semiconductor companies smell opportunity. Texas Instruments, Fairchild Semiconductor, and National Semiconductor begin mass-producing cheap digital quartz watches.
Yeah. A lot of people forget that. TI, they didn't just make calculators. They made computers, and they made some of the first digital watches. They weren't smart watches, but for their time, they were a very smart bit of watch.
In 1972, Hamilton releases the Pulsar P1, the world's first digital LED wrist.
And this one was actually worn by Sir Roger Moore in Live and Let Die, which I believe was in film released in 1972. A little bit of product placement there.
Releases the Pulsar P1, the world's first digital LED wristwatch. The electronic circuitry is designed by Electrodata Incorporated in Texas. The integrated circuits come from RCA and Hewlett-Packard. It is a genuinely American, but in 1973, Seiko releases the world's first 6-digit 06LC with a field effect liquid crystal display that runs for years on a single battery. The LED watch drains its battery in seconds of continuous display. The LCD watch stays on permanently.
Yeah, that was a challenge, getting the LCD display to, or the digital display, to just stay on permanently. With the Hamilton Pulsar, you could press a button and it would display for a few seconds, long enough for you to see what the time was or to see what the date was, and that's it. If it stayed on any longer, it would just drain the battery. Oh, thank you for the hydrate and stretch, Redeem Herald. Unfortunately, I'm without anything to hydrate with, so I'll have to get something later.
American semiconductor companies, competing on price in a market they do not understand, lose. By 1978, Hong Kong overtakes the United States in electronic watch.
It's just cheaper over there.
Abandoned the watch market entirely. By 1978, quartz watches overtake mechanical watches in global popularity. The numbers are staggering. Switzerland's share of the world watch market drops from approximately 50% around 1970 to roughly 10% by 1983.
Yeah, the Japanese damn near killed the Swiss in watches. They could not compete. In many ways, they didn't want to. They were just so stuck and hung up on a lot of old ways and just did not want to change. They had to be dragged kicking and screaming into the future.
The number of Swiss watchmaking companies falls from 1,600 in 1970 to 600 by 1983. Employment in the Swiss watch industry plummets
that's a
from 90,000
massacre.
to 28,000. Towns in the Jura Mountains lose 8% of their populations between 1970 and 1980, an unprecedented decline not seen in the previous, but Switzerland survives. In 1983, the ASUAG and SS merge under the guidance of management consultant Nicholas Hayek, eventually forming the Swatch.
I wonder if he had any relation to Friedrich Hayek.
Hayek's strategy is to unite the largest watch groups and produce an inexpensive, fashion-forward quartz watch using revolutionary plastic construction. The Swatch debuts in 1980. It saves the cash flow of the Swiss industry and funds the repositioning of mechanical watches as luck. The Swiss pivot from competing on accuracy to competing on heritage, craftsmanship, and status. It works. Swiss watchmaking comes back to the brink. American watchmaking does not. There is no American Nicholas Hayek. There is no consolidation. There is no pivot. By the late 1960s, Timex has...
No, it's all Wall Street bros. Just like, what can we liquidate down to the paper clips for easy cash flow and to make big line go up?
Roughly half the American wristwatch market while still manufacturing domestic. It survives the quartz era by shifting production, building 2 factories in the Philippines in the 1970s,
outsourcing,
and later expanding to India and China. The company releases the Iron Man in 1986 and the Indiglo backlight in 1992.
Remember the Iron Man? I had an Iron Man.
But in 2008, the company restructures under a Dutch holding entity, Timex Group BV, and the American operation is renamed Timex Group USA. The other great names meet their ends. Hamilton is now a brand of the Swiss Swatch Group. Belova is a brand of Japan's SIT. Elgin's name is owned by MZ Berger, which manufactures watches in China and distributes them outside traditional watch dealerships. Waltham is a Swiss-owned brand producing watches with Swiss Soprod movements. The brands survive as logos on dials. The factories, the workers, the industrial base, the century of accumulated knowledge are gone.
It's all gone.
The geography of loss is specific. Elgin, Illinois, which once housed the world's largest watchmaking complex, loses its defining industry entirely. The factory clock tower is taken down in 9. The factory is demolished.
God.
Waltham, Massachusetts, where
What a
Aaron Lufkin
waste.
Dennison built the first mass-production watch factory on the Charles River in 1854, no longer make. Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where Hamilton calibrated railroad chronometers to within 30 seconds per week, is out of the watch. 8 states once had major watch. None do now at any meaning.
No.
Central idea.
Best the American can come close is, what was it? The revival of Shinola, which that's a shoe polish brand, and now it's been repositioned as a watch company. I think at one point they were trying to build high-end turntables, vinyl record players, but I don't know. I haven't looked at them in a while, and too much of it seemed like they were kind of going with the fashion mall watch approach, leave it to the Japanese and Asians in general to outcompete Western companies. I mean, large supply of cheap labor, use of geo-arbitrage. It's just a matter of time, isn't it? So a shoe polish ain't selling. What can we do to increase sales? I know. Let's make a watch. Whoever came up with that idea, I don't know. Only time will tell whether or not they know whether they know shit from Shinola.
Reaches its realized Nakamura's lifetime project, shrinking the quartz crystal until accuracy becomes so cheap that craftsmanship no longer matters, achieves its end. The movement that once filled a cabinet over 2 meters tall.
There's still fine craftsmanship to be had, even with quartz watches. I mean, Grand Seiko, they grow their own crystals in-house. I've never heard of anyone doing that. That's incredible.
By a factor of roughly 300,000 to fit inside a case 36 millimeters across. Today, 97% of the world's wristwatches are driven by quartz movements.
Yeah,
The
they
Seiko
dominate.
method is a world standard. A $20 quartz watch purchased at a drugstore keeps better time than a $5,000 mechanical chronometer adjust. The 5th-century assumption that precision requires...
It's true. You can spend $50 on a Casio F91 And that thing will run circles around anything that the Swiss can come up with. No, it's not as nice. It's cheap, plasticky, unfantasticky bits, but it does the job. Bit off topic, but Rex, you strike me as a guy with a bitchin' record and vinyl collection. I love the covers on certain records. I used to have a fairly sizable vinyl record collection. Unfortunately, with like so many other things that I had in storage, after I had to move house a few years back, I had to sell off most of my worldly possessions, and sadly, that vinyl record collection no longer exists, or at least it's no longer in my possession. Funny how they don't really try it with guns. The US produce most of the most accurate precision firearms on the planet. They probably have, it might be a lobby. It might be a lobby of some kind, but not only that, the US is one of those few places where you can still do that with some measure of freedom. You know, a person can still learn how to be a gunsmith and make their own firearms. You can't really do that in most other countries. Not without, and in the other places that you can, not without a lot of restrictions and significant levels of, you know, training and credentialism.
Requires mechanical complexity is not merely challenged, it is disproven. The crystal did in 1 decade what gears and springs could not do in 500 years. It made accurate...
And you know, the thing about this chart, this Seiko quartz watch we see here, I mean, number one, we have a lot of complications here. This is date complication, day of the week complication, and tells the time. This is a sort of functionality that people pay upwards of $50,000 to $75,000 for a brand new Rolex presidential day date that does the same thing. And even back then, Seiko was doing it at a fraction of the cost. And you can get the same sort of functionality today on a Casio F91 for about $50 US.
Seiko Group Corporation is today a publicly traded company on the Tokyo Stock. Revenue in fiscal year...
Seiko Epson Corporation. Many may not know that, but the same company that owns Seiko also owns Orient watches and also owns Epson, the printer and electronics company.
2024 is approximately $304.7 billion. The current chairman and chief executive officer is Shinji Hattori, a direct descendant of the
Don't think that's him.
Seiko remains one of only 2 watch companies in the world, alongside Rolex, considered fully vertically integrated, capable of designing and manufacturing every component of a watch in-house. The company that Kintaro Hattori started as a repair shop in 1881 now operates across multiple continents, producing watches, clocks, electronic devices, and Tsuneya Nakamura becomes president of Seiko Epson, the corporate successor to Suwa Seikosha. He works on environmentally friendly watch technologies, including thermic and kinetic movements.
What? That sounds so stupid and such a waste of time. No pun intended.
He earned 6 stratospheric ozone protection awards from the United States Environmental Protection Agency for his work
eliminating sounds so fake and gay.
Seiko Epson's manufacturing process. He retires in...
You're a watch company and a printer company. You're not a bunch of fucking environmental do-gooders. Fuck off with that shit.
1994 at the age of 71. After 50 years at the company. In retirement, he sponsors foundations supporting education, science, and music in the Suwa community. The same mountain town where he arrived as a 22-year-old, standing in the aftermath of a bombed factory. A funeral service is held on the...
They also build jet fighters, washing machines, and silverware. Interesting.
4th of February in Suwa, Nagano
You're building a PRS competition rifle and all of the very expensive components are US and Canadian made. Oh, cool. Really cool. It's fakest and gayest.
He is 95. The American watch industry today exists mostly as a main
pretty much.
Watchmakers in the United States service, Swiss, a handful of artisanal independent, Weiss in California, J and Shapiro in Los Angeles, Avoir du Poids in Manhattan, produce small numbers of watches with American-made movements. An Avoir du Poids with a fully domestic movement retails for under $15,000. A J and Shapiro will cost $40,000. These are beautiful objects. They are not And in the United
No,
States,
it's boutique operation for very select clientele willing to pay a significant premium to have something different from everyone else.
which in 1876 so alarmed the Swiss with its factory output that Switzerland sent an emissary to study American methods, no longer produces watches at any meaningful volume. Nakamura's insight was not complicated. A vibrating crystal, properly miniaturized, could do what centuries of springs and gears could not.
I think this is just sort of wrapping up what we've already heard.